Welcome everybody to this new webinar of the release of the July release of HelloID. And of course, as usually, we're going to discuss the new features that we have released already in the July release last Monday. Don't forget, if you want to see these videos and of course join the webinar so you can ask questions, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss a webinar. Let's start. If you have any questions in between, just put it in the chat. I will try to respond that as soon as possible. But I will see the questions coming and I will react on it. Normally, I'm used to starting with a poll to see what is the best or the newest feature and what you like to discuss as much as possible. But with this release, we have a couple of things I need to mention, and I think there's a little bit of an order in there. So I'm not doing a poll, but I will go to all the features in a kind of a storyline, or maybe some parts that are joined together. I will discuss them. So let's go to the presentation view. So first up, if you can see, I see an admin notification, and that is that it could be that you don't see any provisioning icon like this one, or if you go to the provisioning link, you won't see it because there's a change in the security. So we changed provisioning to a role. So if you go to security and go to roles in HelloID, and I don't know which one, but let's change one, and we go to rights, and you will now have the provisioning and the manage option. So if you don't see it, please check this one if it's enabled for a user in the group which is assigned to a role, or the user directly to the role. And if you don't have this permission, you don't see provisioning. So that's important to know. And that's also the case why we sent this notification to you guys. The second thing is for provisioning. With this release, we support 30,000 persons. So that means is in your source system you can now import up to 30,000 persons, and everything will work correctly, everything will work fine, as fast as it always be, and maybe in some cases even faster, because we made some improvements on that. Also, we made some improvements, or we have higher limitations with the contracts. So previously we had a maximum of 20 contracts per person. But now it's a maximum of 100 contracts per person with an average of 30. So it could be that you have a set of, let's say you have 30,000 persons, and let's say you have a set of 100 persons that have a higher number of contracts than 30. That's no issue, because the average is still below 30. So that's the reason why we changed that to 2 limitations instead of a single one. So I think that one is better. Of course, in those limitations, everything works great, and we're testing with those limitations with multiple tenants and things like that running at a single moment. Also, we made some other minor changes, and that is if you go to the evaluation and you start a new say an enforcement plus, because I also want to do some oh, that was really quickly. Resource, I don't have a resource management, I think, with this one. Oh, here you can see it. So you see a status update if which phase is running. So maybe the resource creation or the enforcement or the evaluation and things like that. You can see that, but you have to be quick. But especially if you have longer running evaluation or resource creations, you will see that in there which phase it is running in for your enforcement. So that's a better overview of what is happening when it's running. Another limitation that we actually set is on the source system, and that's on the logging. So on the source system, we currently, if you had a writing information or write for both or write warning or write error, everything was logged. And we saw that it could lead to a lot of logging messages, And especially if now we have increased to 30,000 people and you make a loop or something like that, it could result in a lot of logging messages. So we set a limitation on that. And that means if your import is running in a schedule, you only are allowed to have 100 warning or error messages. So we ignore the write information or write verbose messages and only log the warning and error messages, and we only do 100. So if you're sending 105, we will ignore the last 5. If you're running this in a manual mode, so just press here start import, we log everything, but there's a limitation of 100,000 log messages. So that's a lot. And why we did the difference between the two is if it's a schedule you just run and you're only interested in the warnings and errors, but if you start it manually, you want to debug something or you want to check something. And that's the reason why we have a lot of more or a higher number of limitations on the manual approach, where you have to debug and maybe send a lot of messages to see if everything's working, than on the schedule. Also, it's easier to develop it because if you have a connector in place and you say, okay, I have write information or write verbose in my script, we will just ignore it with the schedule, so you don't have to remove it from the script. You can just leave it in there. So that's really nice, I think. Okay, so that is the case for provisioning. I will come back for some other features later on. But another thing that we added or changed, I have to say, is that if you go to your delegation and you have a delegation form, and I have here create employee HR, and it has a task in there, which is directly PowerShell instead of the old task selection. And in this case, it's running on the cloud. If it's on premise. And if I want to switch to the cloud, I can switch this, of course, but now it's running on premise. And we had some issues with customers or saying, okay, this is not really wanted behavior, that if a form is submitted and a task is executed, but the agent is offline because of, I don't know, maybe the internet provider is down for the agent, or the network where the agent is in, or it cannot communicate, whatever. In previous state, you had to go to your task directly in the activity screen. You have to go to this one, and you have to go to let's say this one, create employee HR, and go to form submission, and then press the retry button because the task had failed. Now with this new release, the task will automatically reschedule or retry when the agent is back online, so you don't have to do anything. And that's only, of course, in the situation that there's no agent. So if your task is failed manually or in the script, then you still have to press retry. But if your agent is offline, and that's the reason why the task cannot be executed, it will automatically retry or wait until the agent is online, and it will start the task as soon as that's the case. So that's an improvement in how the tasking works after a submission of the form. Another mention is with the Azure OpenID Connect as an identity provider. We changed a little bit, and that is that we send the domain to Azure ID when you're logging into Azure ID. So let's say you want to log into HelloID, and Azure ID is configured as an IDP, so that means you are redirected to Azure ID to log in. But in the redirect, we already know your email address or something like that, or the domain that you want to use. So now we're sending that domain as a domain hint, and that helps us because if you're already logged into Azure ID in a different session or something like that, we see, okay, this is the domain. Oh, you're already logged into with this email address. Okay, then it will redirect directly without putting an email address inside the browser. So that makes it easier to log into Azure ID. And of course, if you have a custom screen with Azure ID, it will automatically be loaded because of the domain hint. So that's an improvement that we have for the Azure ID identity provider. Another one that we have is the DMARC support for the HelloID.com. So if you're running a HelloID.com domain and you're sending out emails, we added DMARC for you guys. So if you send a no reply at HelloID.com, if you're using that one, DMARC is automatically used. So this will help us and you that not email will go into the spam folder. So it will go directly to your inbox instead of to your spam folder or in quarantine or things like that. And also it helps us to see if there are email blocked and things like that that are sent with no reply at helloid.com. If you're using a custom domain, you have to configure it yourself because you have to set a DMARC record on your own domain for your email. If you're using your own domain and you configured the custom email domain in HelloID, all the requirements for the DMARC record are already registered, like SPF and DKIM. So they're already registered. You don't have to do anything for that. You only have to create your DMARC record on your own domain in your own DNS provider. Let me check if there are any questions yet. No, I don't see any questions, so let me continue. Okay, another option we have with service automation is that we allow to set the comment on a request or a approval or a deny as optional. So if we go to products and let's open, I don't know, Adobe Photoshop product, you now have the option to fill in the request comment. Sorry, it's only the request comment. I said approval and deny, but it's only the request comment. And here you can say if it's optional, required, or hidden. And of course, the default is optional because that was default behavior. You saw a box and you could fill it in, but it wasn't required. And now you can say, okay, it is required, or we don't want to use it, just put it on hidden. And you can do this per product. So as I mentioned, default is optional. If you request anything, you will see the box. And if it's required, you cannot do next on the box because you have to fill in something. We don't check what it is. It's just it needs something in it. So that's really important to know. And the other thing that we changed with service automation is that you're now allowed to send emails in task a little bit more easily. So if we go to the delegated forms and we go back again to the create HR employee, we go to the task. This is my task that executes in this case on premise, and we added a new option here, as you can see, with email. And if I do this, the right information, just like I did with my audit log, I added a tag to send in an audit log. And if I use a tag with the name email and I send an object with the from, to, and also of course BCC and CC are available, but you can see that in the documentation, a subject and a body, I can send an email with this line of code. And of course I can always use some variables in it, maybe even put my message in a global variable and use that inside the script. And this works on on-premise agent and also the cloud agent. Also remember that this will always use our mail provider. And if you really want to use your own mail provider, you cannot do that on cloud, of course, but you can use some default PowerShell if you want to use it on premise and use your own SMTP or /mail server. But this uses our mail server automatically. And of course, you still need to add your domain, your custom email domain, if you want to send in the from with your own domain. So we only supply the at HelloID.com domain from the from, so you can do something like no reply at HelloID.com. That's fine, and the email will send. But if you put in something like this, is customer.com, it will not send. It will end in an error. Because then you need to add the custom domain customer.com. So please remember that, because in the other parts of the software, it's a selection where you can select all your custom domains. But in this case, because it's code and you can do something magical or dynamically based on a part of the code. So you can also say, okay, I want to have a from email address if the department is A, and if the department is C, I want to use this email address, something like that. That's possible, but always the domain has to be registered, or you can use no reply. At HelloID.com. So that's really important to know. So this is a lot easier to use than using a PowerShell code, or even connect to a SMTP server that's open on the internet and things like that. Really difficult. So this is easier. And with this, a lot of questions rose with our customers. What is really happening if you're sending an email? Is it sent correctly? Is it blocked, or is it something? And which emails are sent? And that's not only with this case, so not only with the delegated forms, but also in the products, provisioning, of course, and in some cases access management. And we changed something for that. So what we did is we put every log record of sending an email, if it's successful, yes or no, inside our audit log space, audit log and reporting. So we can build reports on it. And that's also based with some different other options we have available in the audit logging. So if we go to the reports, and I've created a audit logging here. So here I have Mail Insights, a new report that I've created. It will be available soon, this report, and there's a new space coming with the name General, and it's going to be in the next release. And here you can see the mail notification that we just sent. So for now it's the last 15 minutes, so let's change this to let's say it's easier, today. And here you can see my mail notifications over time. So today I've sent I don't want to say a lot of emails, but a couple of emails. Some failed and some were successful. And here you can see a timeline. And here I can see all the emails with some more detail. So here I can see, let's say, okay, this is an incident. So an incident is created, is sent. No, it's true. So it's successful sending the email. This one is failed. Probably maybe because of enjoy.org is not registered as a custom email domain or something like that, and it failed. Why this one is successful? Because there are other two addresses, and I think this one and the other one is working correctly, and admin at enjoy.org isn't working correctly, so it still sees them as a success, because it can send to two addresses, email to two addresses. And the nice thing here is I can search also. So if I'm searching here, I can search on a particular field, but I can also do something like this. So let's say Stella, and it will search in all the emails, and it says, okay, on 13th of July at 30 past 2 almost, it sent an email with a new account for Stella. And I think Stella in this case is the manager for Jan Paul van Otterlo. And in this case also for Erik Joosten. And so you can easily search on this mail notification, and you can find if a mail notification is sent to a particular person in the subject, or maybe in the to. One thing I have to mention is we don't register the message, because that could be a privacy issue, of course, or maybe there's a password or something like that registered there. So please be careful putting passwords or things like that in the subject, because it will be still available in audit logging. We cannot filter that one out. But you can use the subject to see, okay, this is what the mail should be, because I was sending, in this case I think, oh, it's a new account, so I know, okay, it's an AD account, it's created, and it's the AD account is for Jan Paul, and the manager is Stella. And I can also see Stella as an email address inside the to. So this will help you seeing what emails we are sending and how it works. I think this is really nice. And this is for all modules. So this works for provisioning, the emails from service automation, and some emails for access management. But of course, we're not registering the email sent like a SMS MFA token or something like that, because that's not a useful case. So that's the mail insights. I think you can really use this one really nice. Another thing we have, and I already mentioned the comments that we included with the request, where it's optional and yes or no. And we also have those in the logging. So if I go to my product request over time, let's say today, I think. Yeah, so this is the request I did today. And if I look down to Visio, you can now see also the comments of the request, the deny or the approval comments. You will also have this in the audit logging. So you can see all the information that is needed in here. Also, another thing that we added, it's not in one of these particular rows, but it's the form submission for product requests. So if you have a form and you put it in the product request, you will also see this in the audit logging. Just like you see with the delegated form, you also see that in the audit logging, and now you see the form result also for products request. So that's also a big improvement in the audit logging space and the reports. And of course, we're continually adding reports based on this and changing the data. So that's a real nice improvement, I think, for the audit logging, that you can see, okay, this request is done with this form result. And another thing that we added is for provisioning. We added some audit logging for the source imports. You can already see it, of course, in the UI on the source snapshots, but now you can also see it inside the audit logging. So let me say for the last month. So I can see here in this particular tenant, enjoy, in the last month, all my imports were succeeded. So 100%, so that's good. Also 77% or 87% of all my imports was my HR system, and another one was a Flex system. So I'm importing my Flex system lesser than my HR system. And of course I can see here, in this period, so in the last 1 month, 5 persons were added in this period to my vault. 7 persons were blocked in this period, 0 persons were removed, and 81 persons were aggregated. And aggregated means that person A and person B were merged to a single person. And also I can see all the imports with my systems that are started here. And if I open it, I can also see things like if it's manually started or scheduled started. Also some times, so I can see the processing times. So you can all, we're going to build a report based on that. So you can see if the processing times of your imports are gradually increasing and things like that. So this is really nice information to have. And we're going to add, of course, more and more information on this. But it's a nice start to have, and we're putting a lot more into, so we can create reports for you. So it's better to see what the system is doing, and if there is an issue, you can hopefully find it with the reports without needing our help or help from any support or consultancy. Let me check if there are any questions. No, there are no questions. These were the features in general. If you want to have a detailed view of all the features, go to roadmap.helloid.com, press on the launch button, and there you have a tab with notes, and there you will see all the different kind of changes we made, from big to small changes, and also if we fix some issues, yes or no. And of course, if you submitted the issues to our support team, you will be notified that it will be in this release or maybe the next one. So you should be aware when the issue is released. Again, if you want to see all the webinars, just subscribe to our YouTube channel. And also we're doing a lot of new documentation videos. Before the release, we will do a release video, so you can see what's upcoming a week before it's there. Like I said, a lot of new videos each month. So if you never want to miss something, also hit the bell icon, so you will get notified when there's something new on our channel, which could be documentation, of course, or a webinar or a release video. And you can also say, okay, I only want some notification when it's the webinar or things like that in YouTube. And that makes it easier to watch. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully you join the new, or you like the new release, and talk to you the next month with a new release. So thank you.